I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think Ime Udoka is the best head coach in the NBA. If you look at what Ime Udoka has done from like an offensive, defensive efficiency for the Rockets as well, the Rockets were not a good offense last year. Probably better offense than they were defense because, Silas just let them play.
They didn't play
last year, they were I don't even know where they were offensive efficiency. They're up to number 11 in the NBA right now. They're on the cusp of the top 10 of offensive efficiency. You look at where they are defensively, they're one of the best defenses in the NBA when they played zero defense at all. Ime Udoka has turned one of the worst defensive teams into one of the best defensive teams. He's turned a bad offense into a good offense. This team is playing over 500 basketball whenever they couldn't win more than 22 games in each of the last 3 years. And it doesn't stop there either. If you look at Ime Udoka before he came to the Rockets, what did he do in Boston? In his very first year, he took the Boston Celtics to the NBA Finals. Brad Stevens, who's a really good coach, won 36 games. He went 36-36 with Brad Stevens in Boston the year before Ime Udoka took over. Ime Udoka takes over, they go to the NBA Finals and win over 50 games. Even before that, I think Greg Popovich is a good coach in the NBA, even though he's childish for hopping on the microphone and telling everybody to be quiet while Kawhi Leonard's shooting a free throw. Greg Popovich is a really good coach. Greg Popovich hired Ime Udoka. The first person that gave Ime Udoka his break was one of the best coaches in NBA history. I think Ime Udoka might be the best coach in the NBA, Blankers.
I would say that he's up there. I think he's the leader in the clubhouse right now for Coach of the Year, regardless. I think the best coach in the NBA is another disciple of a lot of the things that you said in terms of the way they paid their dues and who they were a disciple of. In this case, it's Pat Riley. But Eric Spoelstra, to me, taking Heat teams, especially in the bubble as an 8 seed and all the things that he's done to get that Heat team again last year to overachieve and beat the number 1 seeded Bucks and do the things that they've done. And he's won titles. And he's controlled egos, which is massive when you get a guy that wants to make every decision like LeBron James, and you get, a guy that's a dominant personality like a Jimmy Butler. But the fact that everybody respects Spo, no slap in the face to Udoka, and I think that as time goes on, he probably is going to be a leading candidate to be the best coach in the NBA for a long period of time. And they definitely got the best coach on the open market. I'd still give Spoelstra the edge in terms of the resume and the overall, but I think that just to be in the same conversation with Eric Spoelstra, because I think it's starting to pass Pop by. And you mentioned what happened about him grabbing the microphone. That's a Bobby Knight, Mike Krzyzewski kind of thing to do in college. But even still, you raise your eyebrow and go, "Come on, man, you got enough to worry about with it on the floor."
Yeah.
But I think that Pop's on the very, very backside. He's on hole number 17 or 18 if he ain't done pretty much with his career. But when you look at those two guys, I think they're the top 2 guys in the NBA, and Spoelstra and Ime Udoka.
I love Spoelstra too, and I love his story. And I wouldn't argue that Spoelstra's resume is better than Udoka's resume. Udoka just hasn't been coaching long enough. It's only Udoka's second year. Right. Like, he got fired after his first year he had too much dog in him, and he got fired after that first year after going to a championship. And this is only the second year he's had as an NBA head coach, so he doesn't have the resume of Spoelstra, who has over 1,000 wins. He has 2 NBA titles. He's been to 4 or 5 NBA titles. Now, a lot of that was with LeBron James. I think Ime Udoka would have had some success with Spoelstra as well. But I wouldn't trade Ime Udoka for Eric Spoelstra. If Pat Riley called me right now and I'm Rafael Stone or I'm one of the Fertittas and Riley says, "We're going to offer you Eric Spoelstra for Ime Udoka," there is no way I'm making that trade with the turnaround I've seen from the Rockets already, from going to being one of the worst defenses in the NBA to one of the best defenses, from having a below-average offense to having a good offense. There's no way I'm trading that guy for the resume of Eric Spoelstra.
Let me tell you why I wouldn't do it. Because I think that just like we were just talking about with Texans versus Carolina, every situation is different, but every situation has a right recipe for success. Eric Spoelstra is basically known now for being able to take 2 Jimmy Butler starred teams that completely overachieved with a bunch of veterans like Kyle Lowry and having the veterans that were interchangeable and took them to where they needed to go. I think Udoka is better suited for what he did in Boston, what he's doing with the Rockets, and that is molding and shaping young talent and turning them into the next set of, whether it be a role player that has a given role that they do really well, or trying to build the next superstars, like what he's already done with Şengün, regardless of what you think of Jalen Green. I think it was the right situation for the right coach with Houston. I think that's why Spoelstra has been the right long-term fix for the Miami Heat, because he understands the way Riley wants you to do it, but he also understands today's NBA and how star-driven it is, and he's able to get their respect. So I think both guys are in the exact right situation for them, but you're right. In terms of for the Rockets, they not only got the right guy, I wouldn't trade him for any other guy and say they could do better.
Yeah, I think he's the best coach in the NBA. Concede that Spoelstra has the resume. There's no doubt about that. 8693 feels really weird wanting to talk about all three teams in Houston. I agree. Talking Texans on November 27, 2023 versus talking Texans on November. We were talking about Will Levis this time last year. I'm glad we're not doing that anymore. Don't laugh over there, Mitch.
The you of we were talking Will.
5806 NBA head coaches are useless. Ask Greg Popovich. Ask Steve Kerr. It's about the players, not the coaches. Steve Kerr is 62-100 without Curry in the lineup. Okay, I see your point here, and I understand that it's about, there's a lot about Jimmys and Joes, not X's and O's. The better roster you have, the more you're going to win. But you couldn't just put Joe George on the sideline and win a bunch of games with those rosters. Brooklyn did not win at the level they expected to win.
Right.
Like if you have a coach, and all these teams have coaches, they have coaching staffs, why wouldn't you optimize the position? If you have the best coach on the best roster, you have the worst coach on the best roster, the roster that has the best coach is going to win more games. Now, you can argue how great the margin's going to be, how big the margin's going to be, but to say NBA head coaches are useless is ignorant.
That's a useless comment to me because of the fact that you can take the example I gave with Brooklyn with just continually adding stars to say that that's a roster that should be, capable of winning it all. And they grossly underachieved. Did Tom Thibodeau make a difference with the Knicks? Absolutely, and right away. He took a roster that didn't know how to play defense the same way Udoka did, got him playing a top 5 level defense in the NBA, put in an offense with a little bit more structure to get the most out of the players that he were supposed to be stars for his team, and getting a Julius Randle type to excel and play more like to a level that I think he's overachieving at, or a Brunson or some of the guys that he's developed along the way too. Coaching matters in the NBA. Coaching is a difference maker. Is it the ultimate difference maker? No, of course you need star players, and we know that. But overall, coaching takes you from the level of being competitive and good or playoffs and with a chance to being a true contender or a division winner. It takes you a level up if you have the right coach for the right roster.
Yeah, I mean, I understand where the text is coming from. Like, their best roster is going to have the best roster is more important than the best coach. Like, you have the best roster and a top 15 coach, they're going to win a bunch of games. You have the best coach in the 15th roster, the best roster and the 15th coach is probably going to be better than the vice versa. But I want both. Like, if you're going to have a head coaching position, why would you just settle for head coach doesn't matter. Let's just build this great roster, and then let's just hire a mediocre coach. No, hire the best coach. Bring the most out. And why is those rosters so good a lot of times? Because the coaching staff makes them better. They enhance who they are. They develop them. They bring the most out of them.
But even with super teams, Jeremy, we're talking about a super team that listened to Eric Spoelstra. So a Ray Allen came off the bench or did whatever he was expected to do, no matter what his resume said it was, and they played as a team so that they got the ultimate achievement. With Brooklyn, Steve Nash, because Kyrie said they could coach themselves, and they decided that, hey, they don't need anybody, and Steve Nash can do what anybody else could do with this roster, and then everybody's personality went haywire, and they all wanted to do their own thing, and they grossly underachieved.
Yeah, give me the best coach. I want a good coach team. Like, I want a well-coached team as opposed to a mediocre coach team. And they're not even part of the salary cap, so it's not even a trade-off. It's just the owner's desire, spending money to hire the best guy for the position. Go build a great roster, but also have a great coach. Why wouldn't you? And a lot of times that great coach is going to take a good roster and make it a great roster, especially a young roster that he's very much involved in the development of who they become as players. Look at Alpi Şengün in 14 games. Even Jalen Green. I know Jalen Green's had some downers, but look at Jalen Green the last 2 games after he was benched and sent a message in the fourth quarter. He's been phenomenal.
Who benched him? Who sat him down?
Ime.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
Because Jalen was the last guy to buy in, but now that he's buying in, his stats look better, but the team keeps winning because he's buying into the system. Look at Monty Williams. All the money in the world. You can get the best coach, or you can get the guy that's that's a big name. Detroit went with a big name, overpaid him to take over a young team, and they're not getting the results. The Rockets got the right coach at a good price and got a guy that fits perfectly with their roster, and then the difference is the wins and the losses and the way the team plays on both ends of the floor.